Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. That's a real mouthful to say, but it's a good mouthful because this is one of the best Jedi simulators on planet Earth. I mean, sure, these days you have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which I think are absolutely brilliant games. And before that, you had The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed 2, which I also think are really fun games, even if they had their flaws. But before them, there was the Jedi Knight series, which spawned from the original Dark Forces that came out on the PC and the PlayStation 1. While Dark Forces started out as purely a first-person shooter in the vein of Doom, the sequels would introduce Jedi gameplay with a lightsaber and force powers that made you feel like a Jedi from the movies. But Jedi Outcast is the one game that I have the most fond memories of because I remember it's one that my dad got me when I was just a little kid, and we used to play it in our garage, on the PC in our garage, and it used to be a really cool bonding moment between me and my dad and my brother as well. And it was such a good game. Jedi Outcast was the first game in the series developed by Raven Software, who would also go on to make Jedi Academy, which is the sequel to Jedi Outcast. Nowadays, Raven Software is known for their work on Call of Duty, but back in the day, they used to work on a great many things. There was also a Star Trek game called Elite Force, and I remember playing that on PC as well when I was a kid. I really enjoyed it. It had the same, I think it used the same engine, but what I want to talk about today isn't the PC version that came out originally. What I want to talk about are the modern ports of Jedi Outcast. The versions that were developed and published by Aspyr, who you may know from other ports of Star Wars games that they have created, such as Star Wars Episode 1, Racer, Star Wars Republic Commando, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, the Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection, The Force Unleashed on Switch, and also, last but not least, Star Wars Jedi Power Battles, which is the most recent one. They've done a lot of Star Wars ports. They've also worked on the Tomb Raider remastered games, both the original trilogy and the 4 to 6 remasters as well that released just the other day, actually. They do a lot. They do a lot of stuff. But their Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy ports were the first of this new lineup of Star Wars ports that come out on Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. And I was really excited. I remember seeing the Jedi Outcast trailer at the Nintendo, I think it was a Nintendo Direct years ago now. I remember seeing it announced and I was just like, what? Oh my God, this is actually happening. Because at that point, Jedi Outcast wasn't available on Xbox. It is now, and we'll get to that, but it wasn't available on Xbox at that time. And it was just a little bit tricky to get running on PC sometimes. Things to do with like the display, the brightness could go a bit haywire. The game didn't always run at an amazing frame rate, and it's still like that to this day. It's a really old game. So I saw that trailer at the Nintendo Direct, and oh man, so good. And then it came out and I played it and I did enjoy it at first. But then I saw the truth. Gradually, its flaws came to light and I realized this port was bloody terrible. And nowadays, Jedi Outcast is not a super popular game. I'm not saying it's disliked, but it's just not. You know, you don't see anyone talking about it really. And Aspyr has been in the news for a great many of these Star Wars ports because it seems like every single time something goes wrong or a great many things go wrong. You know, Republic Commando on the Switch and on the PS4 had problems with performance, problems with the controls. There's a glitch that happens, which means you can't turn the camera properly. Like, it literally gets stuck when you try and turn it. And of course, there's the game-breaking bugs in Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. The broken promise of the restored content mod coming out for Knights of the Old Republic 2 on Switch. There's the Battlefront Classic Collection, which had so many bugs. And it still has a bug on the PS5, apparently, where the in-game music does not play. And I think that's exclusive to the PS5 version. I don't know. I didn't buy the PS5 version. I didn't buy the Classic Collection at all, actually, for good reason. So they have a history of buggy Star Wars ports. And because Jedi Outcast was the first of this new batch of ports, They had done previous work with Star Wars before that point, but Jedi Outcast was the first of this new batch. I just want to bring these problems to light. I like to be a bit more positive on this channel, but this time I feel it's necessary to get this video out there because I love Jedi Outcast and I don't want it to be stuck in this state for the next 20 years. But let's get on with it, shall we? I'll give you a basic rundown of the story of the game, just so you know what kind of game we're looking at today. Jedi Outcast is a sequel to Jedi Knight and Mysteries of the Sith, which was the expansion to Jedi Knight. It stars protagonist Kyle Katarn and his partner Jan Ors as they investigate a new sect of the Imperial Remnant, and the plot gradually starts to unfold and dark side powers come into it, and there's a cameo from Luke Skywalker and Lando Calrissian. It's very epic. There's Jedi battles. The gameplay involves first-person shooting for the beginning levels of the game, and then when Kyle regains his lightsaber because he decided to put it down at the end of the previous game, the levels after that point become more focused around the lightsaber and force powers. It's a game with so much freedom of movement. The levels are quite wide open, perhaps too much so these days. I think modern gamers would really struggle to find their way around some of these levels, and the difficulty can be quite hard. But the feeling of being a Jedi is just, I think it's still unmatched, to be honest with you. So let's start with the first-person shooting here. On the PC version, the shooting can be quite difficult because it's not like a Call of Duty game or something that involves real bullets, where they're so instantaneous that wherever you aim and shoot, you know you're going to hit in that where your cursor is exactly the instant after you pull the trigger. No, in Jedi Outcast, you can actually see the physical red laser bolts as they go from your gun to where you've intended to shoot, and so it's a lot slower than something like Call of Duty, and so that takes a bit of an adjustment period. But on PC it's okay because you have mouse control. The mouse control is a lot more accurate than using an analog stick on a controller, for example. And the Xbox and GameCube ports of Jedi Outcast, the original Xbox and GameCube ports, adjusted it so that they actually added aim assist. And I can show you here actually, I have footage from the Xbox version, which is now available on the Xbox store. You can play it on an Xbox Series X or an Xbox Series S. You can see the cursor turns red when you actually aim at an enemy, and on these console versions, the laser bolts home in on the enemy when the cursor is red. So you don't have to worry too much about very specific aiming. Just make sure your cursor is over the enemy so that it turns red and you'll hit the enemy. It's a much needed quality of life improvement for consoles, and they did it all the way back then, back in the early 2000s when the game came out. So, does the Aspyr port do that as well? Nope. No, because the Aspyr port of Jedi Outcast is the PC version. It's the PC version with absolutely no bells and whistles attached whatsoever, apart from adding button graphics to indicate that you're playing on a Switch or a PlayStation. In the Aspyr ports, if you aim at an enemy, you better be sure you're directly aiming at their body or their head, because there's no aim assist whatsoever. For some reason, they did not add that quality of life improvement to the game. It's a little thing, but it makes it so much harder to actually play the game, and considering the beginning of the game is solely focused on first-person shooting, it's not great. Now, the Switch version does have gyro controls, which alleviates it a little bit, but it's not the same as mouse control. It just isn't the same. And the PS4 version doesn't have gyro controls at all, so if you have that version, oh boy, prepare for some trouble. I don't quite understand why this is the case, because I'm sure they could have done it. I'm sure they could have added aim assist in some fashion. Maybe they just didn't have the budget for it. I don't know. Again, the original Xbox and GameCube ports had aim assist. If you play the Xbox version on your Series X or S, you can see it for yourself, you can feel it for yourself. The game just feels so much better on that system than it does playing it on a PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 or a Nintendo Switch. Next, I want to talk about saving the game. On the PC version of Jedi Outcast, it was not possible to overwrite a save file with another one, which is something that most games, the vast majority of games, let you do nowadays. And in fact, It's going to be quite a common theme actually, but the Xbox and GameCube versions do let you overwrite save files in Jedi Outcast. Because when you're playing on a console, there's more limited space for saves. So being able to overwrite saves is quite essential, really. You don't want to have to go back and delete a bunch of saves just to make room for new ones. And this is quite the problem with when you're playing on the PS5. I don't know about the PS4 because I haven't played Jedi Outcast on the PS4, but I have played it on the PS5, and there is a limited number of saves. There is quite a lot of saves available, but they are limited in number, and it's not as many as you might think. When you're playing the game and you get to a hard part you're struggling with, you might save the game, because when you reload the save file, Kyle is going to be in the exact position you were when you saved the game. It's one of those things. It's more like a save state rather than saving the previous checkpoint, for example. But if you get to the point where you've saved the game too many times, but you're unaware of that fact, and you progress through the game and you get to a really hard part and you want to save the game again, on the PS5, it is impossible to delete the saves from within the game itself. It is just flat out impossible. What you have to do is go out of the game, close the game. You have to close the game in order to do this. You go into the settings menu, then you go to your save data, and then you have to physically delete all the individual saves that you don't need anymore. And then you have to go back into the game again. So if you get to the point in the game which is really hard and you want to save it, but you can't save it, that's it, that's your progress gone. It's a really silly system, and it's partly worse because of the PS5's way that it handles save games. It's baffling, to be honest. But I think it's also down to Aspyr for not making sure that save games can be overwritten. Is there something in the code that's so set in stone that that's not possible? And the Switch version, well, the Switch version only lets you have 5 saves at a time. That's right, 5 at a time. You can't overwrite any of them, and you have to delete them every single time. 5 saves! That is ridiculous. Why is there such a limit? And it was never patched. It's like that to this day. I just don't understand. It's such a simple thing. Anyone can look at that and go, well, that's ridiculous. And they did at launch. People complained about it and it was never fixed. Again, this is something that the original Xbox and GameCube versions sorted out over 20 years ago. Vicarious Visions ported Jedi Outcast, the PC version, they ported that to the Xbox and the GameCube perfectly over 20 years ago, with all the quality of life improvements that you would expect from a console port. And Aspyr has failed to do any of those things. Okay, now let's talk about some of the visual aspects. In terms of the textures, the sharpness of them, the games do look good, I will say. They look just fine. And Jedi Outcast actually has an option so that you can switch from either the original 4:3 aspect ratio, or you can have the new widescreen 16:9 version. I generally try to play with the 4:3 aspect ratio because that's what the original intent was. But sometimes, it's nice to have a widescreen version. However, by doing that, the HUD graphics look really stretched, which is the same on PC as well. And you can't really do anything about that on PC, but Aspyr were the ones porting this game under direction from Lucasfilm. So you'd think maybe they would have some kind of ability to maybe redo the HUD graphics so that they look right instead of stretched. I don't know, it's not a massive deal, that particular aspect. It's not a massive deal, but it is just something that is real niggly for me. Even the main menu screen looks stretched. So again, it's either that they didn't have the budget, or perhaps it was just a bit of a rush job. Maybe they just didn't have permission from Lucasfilm to make any changes in that regard. But the thing that affects the gameplay is the fact that they haven't changed the field of view in widescreen mode. Because to make it widescreen, they zoom in the 4:3 aspect ratio so it fills up the entire screen. And because of that, the top and the bottom of the screen get cut off. At least that's how it seems anyway. So it's actually harder to see what's above you and what's below you than it is in the 4:3 aspect ratio. Now on PC, you can actually fix this very easily by just changing the field of view settings. But Aspyr hasn't done that for some reason, and it's just very strange. Again, it's kind of a small thing, but it does affect the gameplay this time, and I I just don't get it. I just don't understand why the field of view wasn't changed. It's such a simple thing to do. And next, we have the ability to turn your lightsaber off, or the lack thereof, in the Aspyr ports. Now, the PC version lets you turn your lightsaber on and off at any time just by pressing a key, a simple key on the keyboard, usually the 1 number key. And on the Xbox and GameCube versions, you can assign your lightsaber to one of the buttons on the controller, and that button will then be able to turn your lightsaber on and off at any point. And it's a really simple thing. It's more about immersion than anything else. But it can also have a gameplay effect, because you see, the thing about the lightsabers in Jedi Outcast and also Jedi Academy is that they are constantly doing damage. Even if they touch an NPC, that will damage the NPC. And sometimes in Jedi Outcast, you are working with a friendly NPC, and the last thing you want to do is cause any damage to that NPC, because then they will turn hostile or they will die, and then you will fail the mission. And so it is advisable to turn your lightsaber off sometimes. Now, it can be really easy to do so just by changing to one of your guns, one of your other weapons, and that's all fine and dandy. But look at this animation of turning off the lightsaber in the PC version. It looks so cool, the way he twirls it around, and it's a small thing, I know, but it's immersive when you see him do that. It's immersive to see him turn off the lightsaber and still actually have it in his hand, rather than just switching to a gun. You know what I'm saying? And again, it's something that the PC version lets you do, and it's something that the original Xbox and GameCube ports let you do as well. But the Aspyr ports on Switch and PS4, nope, they don't let you do it. And really, I think that's about it, to be honest, with my gripes with the game. There's not too many of them, but the fact that they are there, and they are so easily fixed, at least I think so, it's just such a massive shame. And I just wish Aspyr could go back and fix them. Because the thing is, we live in a world now where the digital platforms of these companies are lasting from generation to generation. So the Nintendo Switch eShop is still going to be used for the Nintendo Switch 2. And I have no doubt that the PS4 and PS5 store is going to be used on the PS6 as well. So these versions of Jedi Outcast will still be there. In my opinion, I don't think Lucasfilm will see any need to re-release Jedi Outcast again. They will just see these original Aspyr ports as being the ports of Jedi Outcast for the foreseeable future. And yet at the same time, Aspyr has moved on from these ports. So I really doubt they are ever going to come back to them. And so I just have this sinking feeling that these issues will never be fixed, and Jedi Outcast will remain a very annoying game to play on these systems, with the save system being so irritating and the lack of aim assist making the game just incredibly hard at the beginning. It's not even just the first level, it's the first and the second level as well. And they're split up into multiple stages as well. You know, it's a couple of hours that you're playing the game until you get your lightsaber. And those couple of hours are gonna be very difficult for people that don't turn on God mode. Because yes, there are cheats available for the Switch and PS4 versions, which is good. I like that. But those cheats should not be used as a band-aid for simple quality of life improvements that Aspyr just could have made, the same as Vicarious Visions did over 20 years ago. I can't stress that enough, that Vicarious Visions took the game developed by Raven Software on the PC and they ported it to the Xbox and GameCube over 20 years ago with aim assist, with the ability to overwrite saves, with the ability to turn your lightsaber on and off. And it's a real shame because this and Jedi Academy, which I will be covering in a future video, really soured my opinion on Aspyr. And seeing what they later then did with Republic Commando and the Battlefront Classic Collection and Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 on the Nintendo Switch, I just have so little faith that anything they release from now on will honour the legacy of the games they are trying to port. And again, it's not like the PC version is easy to set up either. As I said at the beginning of this video, the PC version is hard to get running well on modern systems, and so I think modern versions of Jedi Outcast are needed, but the ones we have are they're just not good enough. The game deserves better. It deserves a lot better. Raven Software deserves a lot better than to have these subpar ports being the go-to ones that people are obviously going to pick if they want to play this game now. People are going to have their opinions soured on this game. They have had their opinions soured on this game. If you want an example of a fantastic Star Wars port, ironically, you need to look at the beginning of the Jedi Knight series, which is Dark Forces, Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered, developed by Night Dive Studios. That game is the perfect example of what a port should be of such a classic game. It has so many improvements, both gameplay and visual, and audio too, that it is the definitive way to play that game. And sometimes I wish that Night Dive had been responsible for the rest of these Star Wars ports, even though I know that Night Dive are more, classic first-person shooter porters, things like Doom and Quake and Power Slave Exhumed and Turok, but still. And I really hope that they are the ones that get to develop Star Wars Jedi Knight and Star Wars Jedi Knight Mysteries of the Sith, because that game is near impossible to get running on a modern PC. And if Aspyr are the ones that are developing that, well, I mean, I don't even want to think about it. If I'm being honest with you, I don't even want to think about that. But that's it for this video. I've given you my opinion. I've shown you the evidence. Please don't let the shoddy nature of the Jedi Outcast ports taint your view of the game. If you can get it running on a PC, please do so. It is well worth the time. And if you have an Xbox Series X or Series S, also play it on there. It's a really good port of the game. And it has some extra features as well. It has some like character bios. It has level select. It's just a really good port. I'm really impressed by what Vicarious Visions did. They even improved some of the graphics. Let me show you this actually. This here is a door. it's a door, but it looks more metallic than the door in the Raven Software PC version. It's just, they didn't have to do that. Vicarious Visions didn't have to improve upon something as simple as a door, but they did. And there it is. However, the version on the Series X and Series S does have a problem with turning the camera. It's like this game is cursed. There's a problem on literally every platform. So when you turn the camera to the left, it's a smooth turn and it's quite slow. But then when you turn the camera to the right, it starts off smooth and slow, but then it suddenly speeds up. And that's the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to have that sudden speed up because it knows that you're constantly holding it in that direction. Acceleration, basically. There's supposed to be acceleration when you're looking right and when you're looking left. But it only happens when you're looking right on the modern Xbox consoles. And I have no idea why. I have actually looked at the original Xbox version and it doesn't have that same issue. So I don't know what the modern Xboxes have done. I don't know if it's a dead zone issue. I don't know. I really don't know. But, that is a problem with Jedi Outcast on the Xbox. However, apart from that issue, the game is absolutely fine and you will have a blast. Even in the beginning levels where it's just first-person shooting, because the aim assist, again, is there on the Xbox version and it works really, really well. But I'm going to stop ranting about this subject now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, even if it was a bit negative, but I just needed to get this out there just so that there is video proof of it, I guess, just so that someone is talking about it, because I don't want this game to be forgotten. But yeah, if you like the video, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. They won't all be negative. This is actually the first negative video I've made on this channel. Actually, no, it's not. I also did one about the stutter in Jedi Survivor on PC. But apart from that, yeah, I like to make more positive content as well. But I will be making a video on Jedi Academy too. So if you want to see that, please subscribe to the channel so you get notified when it pops up on YouTube. So thank you for warping with me to the Star Wars galaxy, and I will see you next time.